Hey folks, we're gonna talk about one of the most common mistakes everybody makes when they start wearing wrist wraps. So a lot of times people will put wrist wraps on something like this, where they're called wrist wraps, so it seems like this should be the right thing to do. You just wrap around your wrist and you end up with something like this. So all I've done there is I've wrapped the top of my forearm and I haven't covered my wrist joint, and you can see how my hand will move all the way. Now this feels tight, it feels secure, and what tends to happen is your hand kind of just rests along the top of the wrap, so you feel like it's right. This is actually incorrect for the purposes of supporting the wrist. The reason you want to wear a wrist wrap typically is to make the transfer across your wrist joint as efficient as possible and just support all of these structures here. So whether it's because of an injury or just because the weight starts to get heavy or your wrists are starting to get irritated. So there's nothing wrong with wearing wrist straps. It's probably a good idea in a lot of instances. It works kind of the same way as your belt in terms of tightening things down and providing support. But here's the proper way to do this. And by the way, if you're used to using kind of cheaper wraps that are very stretchy, you may be used to tightening them pretty tight, and that's fine. But if you go to a stiffer, wider wrap, you're gonna have to learn to go a little bit looser and wrap them properly rather than using tightness as the way to feel the support. So you'll notice that the first wrap I'm gonna make actually covers the wrist joint, and I want most of the wrap to cover my wrist so that when I'm in a neutral position with my wrist, and this is a neutral position here, not here, not here, this is neutral. So I'm gonna set my wrist into a neutral position, and my first wrap will go kind of around the base of my thumb and the base of my palm. So you'll see that my hand is actually covered by the wrap. I'm not bringing it all the way down here. So I'm covering the hand, and the first wrap is pretty loose. Okay, once I get the first one in, then I can lock it down and make it tight. So what I have now is the wrist wrap over the center of my wrist, and now this grip is locked in. Okay, so I'm gonna do this one more time. So put your little thumb loop in. First wrap goes over the palm, over the hand, around the thumb, and then cover the wrist joint. And then after that, you can kind of tighten it down to your preference. So this is correct. Now my wrist is locked in. It's much more difficult to move, and it's not down here where my wrist can move around. All right, so try that out.